Hello and welcome to Nolan Financial Radio. My name is Tara Nolan from Nolan Financial. If you are new to the show, welcome. We love to have you. This show is all about education. It's not a problem out there of not enough information. It's trying to go what information that I'm hearing from my coworkers, from the media, from my internet feed, what applies to me. So the show is all about trying to give you some context and insight and do some stories and all that kind of stuff to help you figure that out. If you are new, I would just remind you that you can feel free to give Chris and I a call at 719-210-4242. That's 719-210-4242. If you have a burning question that we didn't quite get to, or if you just feel like you're ready to go ahead and set up that complimentary discovery call to look at how all this information applies to you specifically. In the meantime, I would definitely ask you to go visit my website at www.nolanfinancialpartners.com. And while you're there, click on the radio page because you can go back. We record all these shows and you can find a topic that applies to you from IRAs, TSPs, Medicare, 401ks, how to plan for your summer vacation. We've talked about it because, I think money touches every part of our life. And while you're there, you can subscribe for the show and catch it on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, basically anywhere a podcast is played. Pick your platform of choice. So today we're going to be talking about, how does the Fed rate hike really apply to you as an individual? And kind of look at that because you see all the stuff in the news and the sky is always falling. But what we want to get into is what does that really mean for you in your life today? But first, I wanted to take a minute and say, Tony Shore, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I've been wondering what in the world the Fed's doing, and they keep saying they're going to raise it even more now. So I don't know. And every time the Fed speaks, the market reacts, and so we have this domino effect going on with our economy right now, with finances. I mean, we've been talking about it the last few weeks, from market volatility to the Fed raising their interest rate to inflation, and there's still some supply and demand issues. And so, which came first, the chicken or the egg? You know what I mean? The Fed said they raise interest rates, but that's because of inflation. But because they raise interest rates, the market is volatile. So it's cause and effect. And that just always gets me every time.
It really it can be a little frustrating because the Fed, that is one of the things that they do. It's one of their tools that they have is to raise interest rates to kind of slow inflation because the idea is that people won't be putting so much money in the market, and so then there won't be
Right.
this huge demand that lets businesses raise their prices. But it's a lag, and it's definitely the Fed is looking at it from like this 30,000-foot view, and so they're looking at the country and the world as a whole, but for you in your life, it feels a little more personal than that.
Well, sure. I mean, if you're in the market for a house, and we talked about this just a week or two ago, a couple of weeks ago, about how if you're in the market for a house, interest rates, my wife and I secured 2.8%, and now it's at 5.5, and then they say it's headed towards 6. The Fed came out recently and said, hey, we're going to raise it some more probably throughout the year. So it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's funny how the Fed, or the Federal Reserve, and you explained that in our previous show, but we didn't get to cover all of this topic. So I'm excited to get into that. But you asked how I was doing personally. That's top of mind for me right now. I am doing great. I've had really a good couple of weeks and still doing good. Just trying to get things done around the house. I know while we're recording the radio show, you've got Chris, your husband and business partner, is out. He's out weeding the yard or working out there, right?
He is our one of our good friends has loaned us his skid steer, and
Oh,
so we've got a problem here in Colorado. We live out where it starts to get a little dry, and the yucca have been taking over, and I think, like, maybe this part of Colorado is slowly turning into New Mexico or something, but this yucca is everywhere, and if you don't know what that is, it's this, like, sharp, spiky plant, and it sends up roots from other plants, so you can't just kinda go dig it up. You'd need a big piece of equipment because some of it out in our horse pasture is just huge.
Yeah.
But the thing we're looking at is I think we're gonna have to find somebody that will just start doing this quarterly, Tony, because around us in other people's places and their pastures, this stuff is growing. So those seeds were gonna blow over, all it's gonna be like it's the
Yeah.
new fight.
Yeah, it's appropriately named. The yucca is yucky, and it's not good. They should just call it yucky. They it's like yucca, but it is yucky. It's icky. It's
I don't
not
even
good.
know if goats can eat it. It's not friendly.
No, I don't think so. I mean, goats eat everything, but I don't think they eat yucca plants.
And
Of course, if you gave them a piece, they'd eat it, but I don't think they'd naturally go eat it. It's sharp, and again, you say it's kind of pointy and has barbs. It's not good.
so, yeah, so while I hate to get rid of anything that's holding the soil down because grass is not growing right now so much because we don't have
Right,
water,
that's true.
but I can't have 10 acres of just yucca.
I've got some creeping Charlie and dandelions in my yard that seem to grow anywhere in anything in the rocks. So maybe we could send that out and that could grow. You can have some of those dandelions and the creeping Charlie because they're growing in my rocks in front of the house. So
Oh,
they
yeah.
obviously can grow anywhere in any climate, right?
Oh, yeah, it's a constant fight for things to grow where you don't want them to grow.
It is. It is. Well,
So
and speaking of that, things growing that you don't want to grow, maybe some people don't want interest rates to grow. But again, if it can tamp down inflation, that's a good thing. But for me, I'm in the market to buy a car, and I'm going to need a new car here soon. Getting choked up about leaving my car. No. uh, but now is not a great time to buy a car because of the supply chain issues, and they can't find chips, so they can't get them. And of course, I want an electric car, and now that gas prices are up because of
Mhm,
inflation, and
right.
now it's impossible to find electric vehicles. So there's a shortage, of course. So, and of course, this is the time when I'm trying to buy an electric vehicle. I mean, I already have a Chevy Volt, so it's mostly electric. It runs on electricity, but it
Right.
does have a gas generator. But and I love it. It's been the greatest car. But eventually, I'm going to need something else, and my daughter's going to need a car. So my idea was I'll give her my Volt, and I'll get like the full electric new Bolt, EUV or something. But the prices have gone way up on those,
Mhm.
and car loans because the Fed raised the interest rate. So that's just one way the Fed raising the interest rate has affected people, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. So, when the rates were really low, it kind of made if you might have noticed that you don't make any money in a savings account right now.
Right.
And so that's been that way for years that, putting your money in a savings account was not a great place to put your money because it just didn't do anything for you. But it
Right.
was nice because you could get money cheap. So, we
Access
were
it
getting
and
car
access it
loans.
anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, for 2 or 3%, and home
Yep.
loans were down around, 2 or 3%, and
Yep.
so we kinda got used to that was normal, and I know we talked about it before, Tony, but, like, when I bought my first house in Florida as a lieutenant, it was 8% was the going rate,
Yeah.
and
Our first house was 9.8, I think. We
I
got it
wasn't
for
stressed out about it
9.9.
because I didn't know the difference, that was just how it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah, we
and,
thought we were getting a deal when we got like 9.6 or something
my
on our
bargaining
first house.
position my bargaining position was strong because I was like, "Here's all I can afford."
Yeah, that's a
Here's
strong in one way, that's strong. Yes. Yes. I don't know
the
if I
the
call it
people
strong, but
well, I made an offer on a house and they said no, and they came back 4 months later and said yes.
that's you gotta love that. Yeah. Yeah. Here's what I
So
got. So it's take it or leave it. And they said no. And then they decided, yeah, we'll take it.
so,
Yeah.
but here's for what this means personally is money has been cheap and the rates are gonna start going up. So now is when retirees and near retirees really need to double check their strategies and ensure that their financial house is in order. So, in my book, Tony, I have the financial life cycle. So if you have that graph and it's kind of the bell curve from, starting out in your 20s until you're about retirement age, this is not that big a deal. It's not great. It's going to make things cost a little bit more, but you're working. And so, your retirement money is in the market, it's doing its thing. You don't need to worry about this so much because you've got time. But
Right.
it's these people, the retirees and the near retirees, those people who are in that got it phase of their life cycle where they're ready to kick back and start enjoying that nest egg. you're the people who need to hear the show today. You're the ones who really need to understand what your strategy is.
Right. And having a strategy. And I was going to ask you, and I know you mentioned a couple of articles in our past show, and I was going to ask why the Fed made the decision it did, but I think you already alluded to it. And I think the main reason is to tamper down inflation, try to get inflation to lower, right?
Well, exactly, and I mean, it was kind of it was one of those like slow motion crashes that you could see coming. And what really
Sure.
happened, I mean, it's been low for years, and
That's
we've seen that in the
exactly what it's
news.
like.
But then, the war in Ukraine really kind of sped things up
Yeah.
because that caused a problem with our supply chain system,
Hmm.
which, because the world has been pretty stable for a while, everything has been streamlined, right? So what
Right.
that means though is we lost that redundancy. And so all of our supply chain systems are just down to they're super efficient, but what happens is that there's no room for error. And, one of the things that we're interested in watching is Chris is telling me, because he does a lot of reading about cars, and a lot of tires are made in Ukraine. And Chris is wondering if that's like gonna start affecting how easy it is to get tires for cars.
Wow.
And so, we're finding out in the world how we're connected in so many ways. There's this
It's a
we're as a
global economy, right?
we used to think we had the Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean and we're kind of isolated, but we're just really not anymore.
Nope. It's a small world and it's a global economy. And so when these things start to happen, a war in Ukraine or a global pandemic, that really affects us. If something, I use this line a lot on the show, but if someone in China sneezes, our markets in the US catch a cold, right?
That's exactly what happens. And
Yeah.
and so, our Fed is raising interest rates, but guess what? China's taking actions, other large economies are also taking actions. And so we don't only just have to see what happens for us, but how do all these different decisions, affect everybody.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and so that's but meanwhile, in the near term, we've experienced in the last year about a 7% increase in inflation. And so that means things have gotten expensive very quickly.
Yes, very quickly. So, and obviously, you talk about putting things in savings, it's been low. I mean, it's like 0.06% that you can earn in a savings account max, right? And even after the Fed has raised the interest rate a 0.5%, it really didn't raise that much. It's like 0.17, and then the CDs or certificates of deposit are still extremely low. They were only around 1.25%, and now, I mean, they were at 1 and they're probably at, 1.25 or something. So it's really not great.
And that's the thing, right? There's this lag time. So the Fed raised the interest rate, so the inflation happens quick. Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah.
So what we should see happen is at some point, banks should start paying more in interest because they're going to want you to put money in because the banks use your money, right? When you put it in the bank to save it. So we should start seeing that go up. And keep your eye out on CDs because when banks need money, they'll make offers and there'll be better deals, but that's going to happen slowly, right? So it's not going to be there yet. And I talk about it in my book, like back in the 80s when Ronald Reagan was president, inflation was high and CDs paid pretty well.
Yeah, they did. I mean, I remember, my parents and grandparents, that was the big thing back then in the early 80s, Tony, your grandparents got you a CD and it's earning 12% or 14%. And I'm like, 12% on a CD. Can you imagine that? I mean, it was crazy.
And that sounds great, but then there was inflation, so things cost more.
17%,
So
was the interest rate if you bought a house was 17%, and a
right,
CD
right.
paid 10 to 14%. So,
They
yeah,
they kinda go together, so
yeah.
it's not, 12% with our current economy, so that's something that you
No,
have to understand.
and I don't know if we'll ever see that again, that's for sure.
Well, and Tony, then like I talk in the book, like, I think you need to understand what your vision is, and then the second thing you need to understand is how much risk you want, and the very last thing you look at are the tools, like, and where you're gonna save your money. And so safe money places used to be, during Ronald Reagan's years when inflation was high, but they paid 12% on CDs, that was a good place to put money. during the last, 10, 15 years, banks haven't paid anything. So we've branched out into things like dividend paying insurance and other places. But that's why you always want to keep the tools as the last step of the process,
Yep.
because you got to look, and it changes every year. Just kind of like, when you shop around every few years to look for your home insurance,
Yep.
and what you had 3 years ago may not be the best deal anymore. So that's why
No.
you wanna know, here's my ultimate retirement goal, here's a lifestyle I wanna support, and then you start to always, and that's why I do annual reviews with people, Tony, is that we look every year and say, "Hey, is the plan that we made last year, do we need to adjust it because things changed?"
Yeah. We
And,
saved my wife and I and home insurance. We made that mistake when we bought the house. We went through the bank that my wife's family used to work at. Her mom worked there. She worked there in summers. And so we just went with their insurance that they had at the bank, and that's where we did the closing and the loan. And so we just stuck with them for like almost 20 years, right?
oh,
18
sure.
years. And guess what? Then we have Progressive Auto Insurance. We thought, oh, we keep seeing these ads, bundle, and you on the shows said bundle. You can save. It's one way to save money. You said in a show, so we're like, man, we should call and have that looked at. $1,800 less that we pay
Wow.
a year.
Okay, that's a big deal.
That is a huge deal, and the insurance company or then we had refinanced. So the place we refinanced, I said, "Hey, we changed this insurance. We saved a lot of money, and I didn't notice a change in our house payment, because it's
Right.
rolled into there, and I sent you the
Mhm.
information." And they're like, "Oh, we just put that on auto once a year we look." And I go, "No, I want you to look at it now because it changed this much." And they came back and said, "We've never seen that big of a change in someone's homeowner's insurance." And that's what happens if you're with the same homeowner's insurance company and never say anything for 18 years. It's just they're gonna incrementally raise it every single year. And if you don't say anything or switch, I
Right.
mean, that's how these companies work.
Yeah.
So you have to be on the ball. I just wanted to point that out. I had a great story for that and how much money you can save. I mean, it could be a lot.
And that's why you want to do those annual reviews. And so kind of the bottom line to this point is those low yields are great when you want to borrow money. So when you're looking to go buy a car, buy a house. But the
Yeah.
flip side of that is for retirement planning, it's not as much fun when you're looking to save. So Tony, this is a great point for people who are out there that are getting close to retirement or in retirement, and you're kind of, wringing your hands going, where do I save money? Because I have inflation and I don't like this volatility, and I wanna know what my options are. This is a good time to give Chris and I a call at 719-210-4242. Set up that discovery call so we can look at your plan and make sure that you have the peace of mind to be able to sleep at night, because inflation's gonna happen, and we're gonna go through some turbulence for the next few years while everything kinda settles out. So that number 719-210-4242. But for the folks listening, this is when you really wanna get your arms around your plan and you just know what you're gonna do. So you're not always reacting. You wanna get ahead of it and say, "Okay, when this happens in the market, here's what I'm gonna do." And when
Right.
you have those break points that you know what your decisions are gonna be, so you're not always just reacting out of fear or being driven to it because something's gotta give.
Right. So, yeah, and I think that's a great point. I encourage people to pick up the phone, give you a call, schedule that complimentary, no cost, no obligation consultation. I know you and Chris are more than happy to sit down and talk with people, talk over the phone, do it virtually or in person. And I know you have the book, and they can get a copy of your book, which is a great read and so much great information, very educational. Again, where can they go to learn more about the book? What's that web address?
So the website is www.nolanfinancialpartners.com/money-moves. You can get the book right there. And everyone's got an Amazon account these days. You can just buy it right off of Amazon or Barnes and Nobles. It's super easy. And yeah, it's great to check it out. You can get an electronic version if you prefer that. You can get a hardback copy. But it's a great book to read because no matter who you work with, it's gonna help you be able to ask really good questions.
Sure. That's great. And it's a great book. Now, Tara, about the Fed raising the interest rates, we've talked a little bit about what it means for savers, especially those nearing or in retirement, and a little bit about borrowers. But with the Fed hinting that they're going to raise it a couple of more times, those looking to take out loans, I mean, a lot of people, it makes them more hesitant to spend money when the rates are higher or take out loans. But it could go higher in the future. So maybe now is a good time to get that car. I don't know.
It's always a challenge, right, Tony? And I think this
Right.
is where you want to go back to tying to what do you need in your life? What makes your life worth living? What are those conveniences? What does success feel like? And figure those things out. And then we can work backwards with your financial plan to make it happen. Because if you really need a car, you don't want to just like let the government and what's going on in the economy like make you drive around in a car that you're constantly having to have in the shop and get fixed and
Sure.
on and on and on. So I like to have a little reasonableness surrounding what we're doing. But because we have to think about it, Tony, because as the Fed increases the rates, we slowly are going to expect things like CDs and money market accounts to start paying more. But we're basically going from been paying like 0.06%, which is almost
Nothing.
zero.
Yeah.
So even if it goes up to like 3%, I mean, let's just think about that in a hypothetical, $10,000 12-month CD that can pay, 1 to 2%. It's only going to generate about $200 in interest. So even if it goes from like 0 to 2, which is a big
Yeah.
jump percentage wise,
Sure.
that's not gonna move the needle so much in terms of savings. So, it's still gonna be a while probably before bank accounts and CDs are a great place if you're looking to grow your money.
That's true. That's true. And so I think for retirees and pre retirees, if they're looking at what they can make, they need to definitely talk to a financial services professional such as yourself, because there are other options out there that hopefully will pay a little more. I mean, there's a lot of different investments and tools out there, even for short term investments, that could probably do a little better.
Yeah, and that's like part of the job, is I'm always looking because things are always coming up. So another thing that you really want to think about right now, though, is think about things that are adjustable. Like for anyone listening that has an adjustable rate mortgage
Ah,
or home equity lines of credit or credit cards, because these things, Tony, they're all tied to the Fed's key rate.
mm,
And so as the Fed's is raising rates, those things could be on the rise. So I would say if you're one of those people out there that has an adjustable rate, and I'm probably talking to a lot of my real estate folks out there, this is a good time to see either sell that property or maybe lock into, a fixed rate because you just don't, there's no control on that. You just don't know if the Fed is
yeah.
raising rates, where the top is going to be.
That's
And
why those adjustable rate mortgages or ARMs are so dangerous because, yeah, I mean, when rates go up, your interest rates on your home will go up and it'll affect your payments and everything else.
And same thing for those folks that like to carry their balances on their credit cards. I would just take a look at that, and make sure that you're paying those things off every month and make
Yeah.
sure, because a lot of those credit cards, make sure you're paying them off on time or just a little bit early because even if you go a day or 2 past, even if you're paying it off, sometimes you can, not understand where their cutoff is, and so you don't wanna get stuck paying a lot of money in interest that you weren't expecting. So you
Yeah.
wanna think about that. And then just, higher interest rates, they can drain some of your disposable income. So
That's true.
if you're retired and you're now have the ability to travel and you have hobbies that you want to enjoy, just really take a look at what it is that you're doing and if you've got the time now, make sure you're doing a little more planning. Just be aware. I guess that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Don't
Well, yeah, and I know a lot of retirees and near retirees who maybe they're already working with a financial services professional, but for those who aren't that are listening, doing so may make dealing with these rate increases a lot easier and looking at some of those other options, right?
right, Tony, and this is where I want people listening in to know, and it's hard because, the news always likes to hype it up, right? No one watches good news.
That's right.
Pushing on that fear button is what gets people to take action, and so this is where you just wanna reach out and make sure you're working with a professional that can help you, and so you can understand in your life, where are you gonna feel the pinch, and sometimes it's not that big of a deal, And that's
Right.
what you really want to know, especially is when do you need to be concerned and when can you just go, yeah, okay, it's happening. But because it's not the same for everybody, it's not the same across the board. And so it's so important to reach out and get that support to go, I'm going to be okay. And if it is going to affect you, you want to know that too, so that you can
Yeah.
make a plan of action so that you're not just, getting ground underneath the wheel of bigger things happening.
Yeah, exactly. And so, a lot of people don't know, at least before the couple shows we did on it, what the Fed raising the interest rate by 0.5% might mean to them. But I think you've done a good job of pointing a lot of things out. And of course, you did a great job of talking about the yucca plant. And I think learning about the Fed interest rate going up and the yucca plant today really made the show a good one. Very educational. I'm picturing Chris out there right now trying to deal with those yucca plants.
Hopefully he's winning.
I hope so too. I hope so too. But you know what? Another thing people can do, there's a lot of information in your book, your new book, Money Moves, that can help people deal with things like rising interest rates, rising inflation. It really puts you on a solid ground or firmer ground when it comes to your finances. So let's talk about the book again. I know you spent so much time and hard work on the book. I really want all of our listeners to read it. It's so good. You'll get a lot out of it. It'll change your financial life. It really will. It has the power to do that. So, Tara, how can our listeners get a hold of the book?
Well, Tony, I love that you did that. And actually, I was just going to share with you, I've had several people tell me that they're actually passing the book around to everyone in the family because it's
And
become
you're
a
like,
great.
wait, no, let's buy 20 books. I know you have a deal on your website if they want to buy multiple copies, but no, that's good. I know you appreciate people reading it. I know my copy will be my wife will read my copy. I did buy extra copies, but I gave them away to other people. So
Right, right. No, but people can go visit the website at www.nolanfinancialpartners.com/money-moves. And if you look there, you scroll down the page a little bit. I do have some bonus offers when you buy the book. And you can also buy the book on Amazon. You got a Prime account. It's super easy. And you can get an electronic version for your Kindle, or you can, get the hard copy, whatever your preference. It's also at Barnes and Nobles and pretty much anywhere books are sold, you're going to be able to get a copy of it. And if you've purchased the book on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, you can still go to my website, www.nolanfinancialpartners.com/money-moves. Just put in the number that you purchased it with, and you can still get those free bonuses. Because, Tony, my goal with this book is that you actually read it and you take some action to make your life a little better. That's what I
all
want.
right. All right. That's great, Tara. And give that phone number one more time.
Sure, Tony. To set up that complimentary discovery call, the number 719-210-4242. That's 719-210-4242.
All right. And that does it for today's episode of Nolan Financial Radio.
Give us a call. Join us again soon. And I look forward to talking with you next time. Have a great day.